This is Sean Kurker with Voices of Racing, and we're speaking with Butch Welsch, and you are located in St. Louis. And you've created a book that, if the viewers have watched the past couple, let's call them episodes of the overview for the book, that is for the Indy 500, the 70. How many races have you been to?
75 in a row.
75 in a row. So the book itself, if you want to do a little quick shot again in the front cover, it entails 500 photos, over 100,000 words, and the real details that the real fans want to know the backstory of all these situations. And I've gone through it, and it's amazing how much you've covered. Here's the shot of the back cover itself, and here's the shot of just the amount of detail that goes into the text amongst all these photos for approximately about 115, 120 pages or so. So this next shot is the first woman to qualify for the Indianapolis 500, and it's Janet Guthrie, and this was in 1977. So tell me about how you got connected with her to sponsor the car, and just a little bit about the situation.
Well, we're in the heating and air conditioning business in St. Louis, and Bryant is our major brand. And Bryant has been sponsoring a car at the Speedway since 1958. And they had the bright publicity idea. Dick Simon owned a car. He's the driver on the left in the picture next to my wife, Carol, and then that's me, and then Janet. And he had the idea of putting Janet Guthrie, a female driver, in a car for the 500. And Bryant became the sponsor. And they have gotten more publicity out of that sponsorship than any that you can imagine. They still show, she does a 30 on 30 thing that ESPN covers, and talks a lot about her, and her Bryant logo shows greatly. They brought her to St. Louis with Dick Simon because to visit dealers, and we had the opportunity to meet her and have lunch with her, and she was very charming, and she ended up doing very well.
And let's talk about that. So number one, that black and white shot you've got, she signed it. And then that's obviously her car. So describe the race she was in, how she did, and maybe if there were further races.
It was 1977, and it was her first race, first female. One of the interesting things you read in the book, for the time since he took over the Speedway in 1945 for the 46 race, Tony Hulman had said, "Gentlemen, start your engines." So the big question around the Speedway and all of us fans was, what is he going to say now that Janet Guthrie has qualified for the race? And he, in his clever way, was a smart man, came up, and it was with the first lady to qualify for the Indianapolis 500 in concert with 33 other drivers, start your engines. And
wow.
And she ended up finishing in the middle of the pack. She held her own, and she showed women very well in this first race. And unfortunately, it was several years before another woman qualified for the race, but now there have been several women in the race. But she started it all, and when she did it, it was quite an unusual feat for a woman to be in the 500.
So you've also got some pictures of yourself and Sarah Fisher in the book. I was able to interview Sarah about her memories of the Unsers for a project for the Unser family. Who are some of the other females you've been able to meet that have been Indy drivers over the years?
Well, Sarah Fisher, of course, was one of the next ones. The most well-known is Danica Patrick, and I have quite a bit in the book about Danica because I felt Danica was an excellent driver. She led the race. When she took the lead in the race, the fans went absolutely wild. She was very popular, and she took the lead and held it for a while and nearly won. And then in addition to her, there have been several other women. Simona Dale Silvestro is the latest, and there's even hope that she'll be in the race in 2023. And women have showed themselves very proudly in the 500.
All right, so this next shot is a couple monumental finishes. And if you'd like to just talk about this for a little bit, the one with John, Cock, and Mears, I mean, there was only 0.16 or 16th of a second, essentially, in the difference between the two of them.
That's right. And they're at actually, John Cock is across the start-finish line. Mears is right at the start-finish line. These are from old 8mm movies, and that's why the quality of the picture is not that great. But that was quite an exciting race because John Cock's car was not handling well at all, and he came out in the lead about 12 after their last pit stop. He was about 12 seconds ahead of Mears, and Mears started knocking down the time, and he tried to pass John Cock on the white flag lap, and John Cock would not let up. And it looked like the two of them were going to go out on the 16th Street at the south end of the speedway. John Cock held on, and by the time Mears recovered from not being able to pass him, then that's how close he got. The photo on the right is Al Unser Jr. and Gordon John Cock, who were battling for the lead. And that is an example of why I love the seats where we are. My son got that picture, and you can see the nose of Al Unser's car is just about to the start-finish line in the yard of brick, and Scott Goodyear is maybe 10 feet back, maybe not even that far back, which when you stop and think about it now, they've gone 500 miles. They've made several pit stops. There have been a lot of things happen along the way, and yet they're that close at the end of the 500-mile race. And that's part of what gives me so much excitement and gives me so much to talk about as far as the race is concerned.
Yeah, something else I want to bring up about this, and this is also on page 73 for the viewers. When I was able to speak with Scott about this situation for the Unser project, and he went from 33rd all the way up to the front and to battle that whole way. And then for the very ending moment for Unser to come in, Al Unser Jr., and win his second, you know, I could tell the frustration from Scott's, you know, overview of the situation that, you know, he thought he was going into a situation he'd done more than anybody else, gone from the very last place and then all of a sudden going to win it. And Al Jr. came in. Do you have anything to kind of speak about that aspect of how far he came to get to that point?
Yeah, it was a tremendous drive by Goodyear, and I think sentimentally, many of us would like to have seen Scott Goodyear win, especially if we had known that Al Unser was going to win again a few years later, and it would have been nice for Scott Goodyear. I'm always rooting for somebody who hasn't won before, because I like for guys to have that opportunity to be able to say they won the Indy 500. And I feel sorry for Scott. We were in an event that he spoke at, and he spoke to just what you said, Sean, about how disappointed he was. And because he had one other time that he probably should have won and didn't, because he passed the pace car as they were coming for the green flag after the caution flag. And he, I mean, there was no question about it. From where we sit, we could see it, and we were worried for him. And he got black flagged, and they didn't count his last 10 laps, or he'd have probably won that race too. So he could have, would have, should have probably won 2 races.
Right. All right. So here is you and Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's talk about this situation first before we get to Ari.
Okay. Emerson Fittipaldi obviously had won the race twice. And in 2018, my family took me to Italy, and we traveled Italy. We went to the Monza track. We did a lot of racing things. And lo and behold, I'm in the Milan airport, and who's there but Emerson Fittipaldi? Well, you can see that I could recognize Emerson Fittipaldi, and I did. And I went up and said, "Hello, Emo, how are you? I saw you win the 2 Indy 500s." And of course, he was amazed to find somebody in Milan, Italy, that spoke English and saw him win the 500. And he happened to be over there with his son at a world go-karting event. So we got talking a little bit, and then it came time to get on the plane. But the neat thing for me was about an hour into this long flight back to Miami, I get a tap on the shoulder, and Emo comes up to me, and he wants to talk for another 15 or 20 minutes about racing, and that was a fun experience. And he was a very, very kind, very nice person to talk to. Very excited about his son being a top go-kart driver.
All right, so Emerson, he obviously was a great driver, but then we've got Ari Lyondike, and this is where's this located?
This is a Worldwide Technology Raceway in St. Louis, which is just across the river from St. Louis in Madison, Illinois. And the way the track is built, the officials have to walk up through the grandstand to get to the place where they sit to watch the race in the press box. And so a few years ago, Ari was coming up, and I thought I'd go say hello and tell him who I was and that. Well, in the 3 or 4 years since then, we've gotten to be quite good friends. I took a selfie with him with my phone one time, and lo and behold, he comes down a little while later and taps me and said, "Here, I want to get a picture of you as somebody who's been in any Indy 500s as you have." And for a two-time winner, he's the nicest, friendly. In fact, we had quite a time to chat this year at the race, and he's just a really, really nice guy, and he is also one of the 3 officials that officiates all of the IndyCar races these days.
All right, and we've got Helio Castroneves climbing up the fence. I know you said it'd been multiple times he'd been up the fence, and then also Robbie McGee. Talk about this situation with Robbie and with his car and being on the track.
Yeah, Robbie McGee was a driver from St. Louis who was the Rookie of the Year in 1999. And really, we didn't know him at the time, but we happened to meet him at a party during the winter of that year, and obviously got to be friends since he was an Indy 500 driver and I was an Indy 500 fan. And we started talking, and we ended up working out a small sponsorship deal where if you look at the cowling of the car up near the driver, you can see our logo there. And Robbie had the logo on his sleeve, which is shown in the book. And we got to become quite good friends. And Robbie is actually our insurance agent now. He ran 5 years at the track. He unfortunately was the first one to test the safer barrier after Tony George put the safety barrier up. Robbie was going into the third turn, and pictures showed that he ended up with a tire that was down, and he ended up crashing into the wall and breaking a bone in his back. Fortunately, he wasn't paralyzed or anything, but yeah, he was the first one to test the safer barrier. Really nice guy and quite a good friend.
So we've got Hornish and Marco Andretti, the finish in 2006. That's the track shot with the bricks going across the track there. And then we've got a group of the longest running ticket owners. They picked 33 of you to be out there and have a really great experience. Explain the experience with all the other longest lasting ticket owners and what they did for you that weekend. That
was quite a treat. They invited their 3 longest tenured ticket holders to come and be their guests that year. We got to sit next to the drivers at the drivers' meeting on the day before. They had bleachers set up for us, and there we are next to Roger Penske and all the real people that were celebrities. We were introduced, and the fans enjoyed it. We got to tour the pagoda, which is now a new pagoda, and we got to tour that, go up on the roof and get some pictures. They gave us a nice lunch. We had a nice talk from Tom Sneva and a former winner, and they just really treated us royally. Waiting in the green room, which is where we waited before this picture was taken, that's the room where the drivers accumulate prior to being introduced before each race, and just to be in that room was pretty special. Yeah, and those are on page 92 and 96 of the book. This next shot here is kind of a triple. You've got you and Doug Bowles hanging out in the stands. You've got
you and Dario unveiling the ticket, and then also ABC doing a little interview with you guys outside. Why don't you talk about Dario and unveiling the ticket and how you got into that position?
Yeah, in 2013, they were looking for somebody to put a ticket. They wanted to put an actual seat number on the ticket that they unveiled. They unveiled a ticket of the winning driver from the year before, and they wanted to put an actual seat number on it. And so they put an email out and said, "Tell us why we should pick your seat." Well, since I'm the only one that has sat in my seat at the Speedway since that time, since 1961, I thought I would be a good candidate. I also did it in the conference room here at my office, where I had every poster that they've ever printed for the Indy 500, which started in 1981, and showed that, and then told some of the things that I talk about in the book. Well, lo and behold, I get a call about the 15th of February and said, "We've chosen your ticket number. We'd like to invite you to come to the Speedway on February 25th, and you'll get to meet Dario and spend some time with him, and then unveil the real ticket. And also, we'll have one of the tickets for you." And so I got a photographer friend to go along with me, and we went up and we spent some time with Dario upstairs. And they had this in a downtown building that had stairway with a nice stairwell that had a balcony, and this is where the picture's taken. And we got to talk, and then we got to unveil the ticket. They gave us one of the tickets. The only little problem we had for the day is I have a convertible, and it was a little difficult. We had to sit driving back from Indianapolis that day with that ticket kind of above our heads because it really wouldn't fit in the car. But it was an exciting thing to meet Dario, and Dario will recognize me when I see him at each race. So that's pretty exciting.
And then here's a shot of you and your son, Brian, and I apologize for not putting the Y instead of the I. And that's up on top of the pagoda, I'm assuming, up in the penthouse?
Yeah, this is out on the fourth floor. In 2020, fans may remember that there were no fans at the Speedway for the race that year. And if you look over, this is race day, and if you look over in the stands, there are no people. Well, I didn't want to let my string of racing attendances be stopped by a mere COVID, and neither did my son Brian. And so it took sponsoring 2 cars to allow each team got 6 passes for their sponsors. And I made a deal with 2 different teams, one for me and one for Brian, to be able to be in the pagoda. And that's where they put us. There was only about 500 people involved there, and they put us in the pagoda, and we could go out on the ledge of the pagoda, but when we were inside, we had to wear the masks. And so just to get to do this, this eliminated, if there are other people that had strings of races attended, I would say I was the only one that kept it going by what we went through to attend the 2020 race.
Right. And then the other shot here is with the museum and track historian, and it's Donald Davidson. He's been around for a long time. And so what was this situation that you were able to sit with Donald and kind of go over the history?
Okay, the first year that NBC started televising the race, in order to promote it, they had Donald go around to various towns within a driving distance of Indianapolis, and they happened to come to St. Louis, and us being racing fans found out about us. And so Donald, they came, and he drove one of the Corvette pace cars for the year. And the only problem we had is Donald and I could sit and talk racing for hours on end. And this was in that conference room that I mentioned. And so I got to meet Donald and spent a bunch of time with him, and we've connected and stayed in touch since. But that was, I mean, he knows so much about the Speedway that it drives me crazy, because I think I remember a lot until I talk to him and he tells me who finished 37th and 35th 1910 or something, and or 1912, what car he drove and all that. I don't have that quite that big of a memory, but we had a great time talking racing.
And here you are. Well, actually, here Brian is in front of the cars in the Ganassi building. And one of the great finishes that happened was that 2020 when you had Dixon and Rossi running pretty much the whole time head to head. In the very last second, Takuma Sato, he came in and took the race. If you want to kind of touch on that as well.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the right picture, this is under yellow, which is why the three of them are able to get as close as they are. And you're right, Rossi and Dixon put on quite a show, and then Rossi dropped back, and unfortunately, we thought we were going to have one of those unbelievable finishes, and it turned out that a yellow was created by Marcus Ericsson with a few laps to go. They didn't feel they'd have time to repair the damage to the guardrail on the track, and so they finished under yellow. And this is Takuma Sato just ahead of Scott Dixon for the win. But this was a unique picture because this is from the pagoda where, as you can see, there's no people in the stands. And this was that 2020 picture when Brian still got a good finish from the inside of the track. The picture on the left is PNC Bank, who is Scott Dixon's sponsor, as you can see in the picture on the right, is a bank that we do business with here in St. Louis. And they invited us to an open house at the Ganassi garage because of Scott Dixon's connection there. And this one picture is just, it says it all. This is actually in the area where they load the cars into the transporters to go to the various races. But they had these cars lined up on three walls. They look like Hot Wheels cars there. And those are real racing Indy cars that are stacked up on the wall like that. We were just amazed by it. My son Brian got to go with me, and so he really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, that is a beautiful shot to be able to see all those cars together and not even get all of them in the shot itself. But I just want to touch on a couple quick things with that 2020 race. When you were there and you were looking around and there was nobody in the stands, like, what are the different things that went through your head about, number one, the people that weren't able to be there, that had been there forever, and that you were there because of a special situation, and two, just how this was an example of how the whole world was getting affected by the pandemic?
It was eerie. I can only tell you that it was eerie. We got a picture of our seats, which were just down the track from this picture, completely empty. We actually noticed that we had heard that they were marking with the hope of being able to have people come to the track and be socially distanced. They actually had gone and put down on the main straightaway, they had put stickers on various seats where they were going to allow people to be. And then actually the Indiana Medical Board were the ones that recommended that they not allow any people. It was a very eerie feeling. I felt bad for the people that couldn't be there and I felt bad for the drivers because it wasn't the same for them to not have fans there. On the other hand, I congratulate the Speedway for going ahead and holding the race. It was a good race, and it showed how they like the continuity and the fact that they've got a race that's been going on since 1911, except for 2 world wars, and 2 world wars stopped it, but the COVID didn't stop it.
All right, well, I'm going to go back to the back cover shot and just let the viewers know that inside this back cover, in the last probably 10 to 15 pages, are a medley of different themed pages of photographs. There's a page of the celebrities that you were able to encounter, as well as the 500 Festival Parade, of friends and family, and also owners and drivers that you were able to encounter over the years. And I think you did a really great job, from the front cover to the back cover. And here's another shot of the front, of just really emulating, not just your perspective of history, about what really happened throughout all those years, and documenting those details of those stories with your own words. Is there anything else you'd like to just say about the effects of this book, and also people that have been able to encounter it?
Yeah, I think the main thing has been that I have gotten the book into the hands of many people, and such as Doug Bowles, the president of the Indianapolis Speedway, even Tony George. I received a very nice note from Tony George telling me how much he appreciated it, and how much he liked what I'd said. And then I got the same thing in a handwritten note from Doug Bowles, telling me how much he enjoyed it. And we've been able to catch up with him at each race since. And it's things like that that make me be happy. I didn't go into this book to make money. I went into to share my memories and let people know what a wonderful thing the Indianapolis 500 is.
Well, Butch, I think you did a heck of a job, and I encourage anyone out there that wants to really dive into the depths of the history of the 500 from a fan's perspective, that not only had a few years, but had over 70 years. You said it was 74 now, or 75? What will it be?
75. 2022 is my 75th. 2023 will be my 76th, Lord willing.
Well, I look forward to seeing you out at the track this coming year, and I'll help celebrate your 76th year with you. If you could just stay on the line, I'm going to close this one out, but I thank you very much for sharing the history of your perspective of the Indianapolis 500. I think you did a great job, and hopefully a lot of fans will be able to read and understand the deeper details that you were able to cover over all these years. Thanks for your time, Butch.
Thank you, Sean. It was my pleasure.
You got it. Just stay on the line.